I'm suggesting we get another child. Get another child from where, Mama? We, we still a child now. I just buried my baby. Then we take another baby that is alive. One that we can claim is ours now. Mama, that would be silly and lying. Eh? Call it what you want to. It's the only way you can have a child again. You make your decision. You don't have to think about it as replacing him. Nobody can replace your son. But Ifani's condition for marriage is a child. And that's the truth. And right now, he believes he still has one. So, before he comes back, you need to make sure that when he walks into this apartment, there's a child here for him to hold. Boma stared at her, mouth slightly open. The idea was wild, dangerous. Her mother kept talking. I know it's not going to be easy, but it's possible. We'll disappear for some time, go somewhere fast where nobody knows you. We'll pretend you're pregnant again. And when it's time, you come back with a baby. Simple. Simple. Mama said, her voice rising. Mama, this is not a small matter. Oh. Where will I even find baby to bring back? Babies are not something you just pick on the road. Her mother's face didn't flinch. Just leave that part to me. I know people, and I know how to make it look real. Boma shook her head slowly, her mind spinning. The thought of holding another woman's child, of telling the world it was hers, it felt like a crime her heart might never recover from. But then, she saw Ifani's face in her mind again. Her laughter when he talked about my boy, his pride, when he handed her the SUV keys, the way he looked at her on the video call, like she had given him the world. And she thought about life without him, about going back to the way things were before he met him, about the emptiness that would be left if she lost both her son and the man who had changed her life. Her mother seemed to read her thoughts. Boma, I am your mother. I know this sounds hard, but sometimes in this life, you don't survive by telling the whole truth. You survive by protecting what's yours. Silence stretched between them. The hum of the fridge filled the room. Outside, a car passed slowly on the street. Finally, Boma spoke, her voice low. Mama, what if they catch us? Her mother didn't say, nobody will catch us, Joe. You just have to do exactly as I say. Boma didn't say yes that night. She wasn't ready. But for the first time in that week, she went to bed with something other than grief in her chest. There was a flicker of something else, not exactly hope, but the shadow of it. The days after the burial were a blur for Boma. She wasn't the same girl who used to wake up, fling open the curtains and breathe in the city air like Lagos belonged to her. Now, each morning felt like dragging a bag of wet sand uphill. Her mother would come into the room, gently tapping her feet. Boma, wake up, eat something now. But Boma would just nod from under the duvet and mumble. Later. The luxurious apartment that once made her feel like a queen now felt like a prison with chandeliers. Every corner whispered the memory of the baby she had carried for 9 months, the white leather couch where she used to rest her back in the afternoons, the balcony where she would stand and imagine herself pushing a pram downstairs. Even the soft rug in the living room that had once felt warm now seemed to bite her toes with cold. The worst was the nursery. She had shut the door after the funeral, telling herself she would never go in there again. But temptation is a wicked thing. One day while her mother was cooking in the kitchen, Boma found herself walking towards the door like someone under a spell. She turned the handle. The faint smell of baby powder hit her like a slap. Everything was exactly as she had left it before rushing to the hospital. The tiny clothes folded in the drawers, the crib with its pale blue sheets, the stuffed giraffe leaning lazily against the corner. Her knees gave way. She sat on the floor, hugging one of the baby's blankets to her chest, rocking slightly as tears fell onto the fabric. Her sobs were quiet at first, then they grew loud, breaking into the kind of cry that made her mother drop the spoon in the kitchen and come running. Boma, her mother rushed in, holding her by the shoulders. My daughter, please stop, you will break yourself like this. Boma pressed her face deeper into the blanket. You didn't even get time to wear it, mommy. Not even once. Not once. Her mother didn't argue. She just sat there with her, both of them leaning against the crib. The silence filled only with the slow ticking of the wall clock. The days turned into weeks. From the outside, if you met Boma in the corridor or downstairs by the lift, you would think she was fine. She smiled when people asked her after the baby. She nodded when they said, "We must come and greet your little one soon." Oh. She even laughed sometimes, but it was thin, rehearsed laugh of someone hiding something heavy. Ifeanyi kept calling. Every time his name flashed on the phone, her chest tightened. "My lioness," he would say in that deep voice that once made her knees weak. "How is my boy? Has he started smiling at you yet?" Boma would bite her lips, stare at the ceiling and force her voice to sound light. "Your boy is fine, oh. But these days, he sleeps a lot." Sometimes she would pass the phone to her mother, claiming she was in the middle of changing a diaper. The guilt was eating her alive. She remembered the way Ifeanyi used to talk about fatherhood, like it was the crown jewel of his life. She could still hear him that day in the hospital when they had gone for a routine checkup. He held her hand and said, "We'll raise him together, Boma. I'll teach him to swim before he's even 2 years. I'll buy him his first bicycle before he can even ride it." How could she tell him all those dreams had been buried in a small white coffin? Her mother was watching her closely. One evening, after Boma had barely touched her food, Mama spoke. "My daughter, we can't continue like this. This man thinks he has a son. He's planning. He's happy. If this thing comes out now, it will not be good for us." Boma looked up slowly. "Mama, what do you mean now?" "I mean, you have to think ahead. Men are not as soft as we think. This is a big deal. He might forgive you for some things, but not for this. And this man is a very good man. We can't lose him. The kind of shock it will give him, it can spoil everything you two have built." Boma shook her head. "Mama, so what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? This pretense, should I continually pretend forever?" Her mother sighed. "I am saying, maybe there's another way. That plan I told you, you won't have to lie forever. But right now, you need to make a decision. You need time to heal and you need to keep him calm." Boma didn't reply. The truth was, she was scared. Ifeanyi had never shouted at her before, but she knew he was a man who didn't take betrayal well. If he felt she had hidden something like this from him, she didn't even want to imagine his reaction. The next day, she went to the supermarket downstairs to pick up toiletries. She bumped into one of their neighbors. He smiled warmly and said, "Madam, how is the little prince doing today?" The words sliced through her. She managed a small laugh. "He's growing very well." Then she hurried past before her voice could crack. That night, she sat alone in the living room after her mother had gone to bed. The apartment was quiet, the city lights blinking through the gates. She picked up one of the baby's small socks from the side table. She didn't even know how it had gotten there. She held it between her fingers and whispered, "I'm sorry, my baby. I'm so sorry." Her phone buzzed. A message from Ifeanyi. "I bought something special for our champ today. Can't wait for you to see it." Her hand clenched. She switched off the phone and sat in the dark. The more she thought about her mother's words, the more they began to make sense. Not because she believed it was right, but because she felt cornered. She couldn't keep lying forever, but she couldn't also tell the truth now. The risk was too high. A week later, her mother brought it up again, this time more firmly. "Boma, you can't keep drifting like this. Ifeanyi is sending money, buying things, calling every day. Sooner or later, he will want to see the child. What will you do then? Hide in this house?" Boma rubbed her temples. "Mommy, I don't know. I just need more time to think. Time is not your friend here. You need to plan. Listen to me." Mama leaned forward. "We need to act fast, so no one will suspect." That night, Boma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She remembered Ifeanyi's face when they first talked about naming the baby, how he had laughed and said, "He will be my legacy." She thought of how proud his voice sounded whenever he said, "my son," on the phone. And then she remembered the tiny white coffin. By dawn, she knew her answer, not because it felt right, but because she believed in it. For now, it felt like the only way to survive. She would follow her mother's plan, even if it meant carrying this secret like a stone in her chest for the rest of her life. When Boma finally nodded her head and told her mother yes, everything changed. From that moment, it was like they had stepped into a tunnel where time didn't move straight anymore. Days no longer rushed. They crawled, careful, watching for the right opening. Mama didn't waste time. She called one of her friends, who directed her to a town in Akwa Ibom where nobody knew their name. They reached there. It was a crowded area where people paid rent daily. You could smell frying akara and blocked drainage in the same breath. The buildings leaned on each other like tired women would sink. Zinc roof patched with different colors and allies so narrow you had to turn sideways to pass if you were carrying something. The good thing about such places was simple. Nobody asked too many questions. Nobody cared whether you were a doctor or a thief as long as you paid your daily rent. From their small hot room, Boma and Mama located a healthcare center not far away. That was the first real step. Mama didn't need to say it. The plan was already breathing. Before they even came here, Boma had prepared. She had bought one of those fake silicone pregnancy bellies from the market in Port Harcourt. She wore it all the time. She made sure to walk the walk of a pregnant woman, slow, steady, one hand at the base of her back. 2 days after settling in, Boma went to the healthcare to register for antenatal. She joined the other women on long benches. Some were quiet, others were talking about swollen feet, stubborn cravings, and careless husbands. From that first day, Boma kept her ears wide open. She wasn't there to make friends. She was listening for something. She needed to know which woman's time was close, who had no strong family around, who would trust a stranger. It didn't take long before she noticed her. That afternoon, one of the nurses had scolded a young, heavily pregnant woman for not going for her scan. "Do you want to kill yourself?" The nurse barked in frustration. The woman mumbled something and walked back to her seat, looking embarrassed. Boma had been sitting nearby, pretending to check her antenatal card when she overheard the woman on a phone call, speaking her native dialect, Ikwere. Boma understood every word. The woman was telling someone that the nurse was troubling her and that she didn't have money for the scan anyway. She also said her due date was near, maybe days away. That was all Boma needed. She leaned over with a soft smile and spoke Ikwere. "Sister, don't mind these nurses. How is your body today?" The woman's head snapped up in surprise, her eyes lighting up. "Ah, you speak Ikwere?" Boma laughed lightly. "Why not? My mother is from Isiokpo." It wasn't true, but the lie rolled off her tongue without effort. Within minutes, the women were talking freely. She told Boma about her husband, a bricklayer trying to get steady work in town. She explained how they had been staying with a cousin since they came for her delivery. She spoke about how things had been, how hard they had been, how sometimes she didn't even want to get out of bed because of the stress. Boma listened like a sister, nodding at the right moment, her eyes soft with concern. When the woman mentioned the scan again, Boma leaned in. "Don't worry about that. I'll help you. I'll take care of it." The woman's eyes filled with gratitude. "Ah, you helped me. God bless you. Let me call my husband and tell him." She stepped aside to make the call, her voice trembling with excitement as she told him what had happened. That evening, Boma went to a small shop nearby and bought baby clothes, socks, and a pack of diapers. She wrapped them neatly and gave them to the woman the next day. "Just small things," she said. From then on, they were sisters. They sat together at antenatal, shared everything, and sometimes left the clinic together. The woman's trust was now like a door that had been left wide open. It didn't take long after that. One hot afternoon, word spread around the center that the sister's time had come. She was in labor. By the time Boma got there, Mama was already hanging around the compound, pretending to be waiting for someone. Boma rushed in and found her friend breathing hard, gripping the iron bed frame. "You're here!" the woman gasped. "Please don't go anywhere. Stay until I give birth." Boma smiled gently, her eyes soft, but inside her chest, her heartbeat was hammering. "I'll be here," she promised. Hours passed. The air in the ward smelled of Dettol and boiled water. Other women groaned in the corners. Nurses moved quickly from bed to bed. Boma fetched water, adjusted her scarves, held her friend's hand through contractions. She was calm on the outside, but every minute felt like she was walking toward a cliff. Finally, the cry of a newborn cut through the thick air. It was a boy. The husband bent over his wife, kissing her forehead. He looked like a man who had just been handed his whole world. They were moved to the ward to rest. The husband stayed for a while, then said he needed to get fresh clothes for his wife. The nurses began preparing for the new mother's postnatal check. One of them turned to her and said, "Madam, leave the baby here with your sister. She will carry her while we check you." The woman smiled at Boma, relief in her eyes. "Please help me hold him." Boma nodded, taking the baby into her arms. Warm, soft, her tiny breath touched Boma's neck. For a moment, she froze. It was like holding light. She glanced towards the door. Mama was already standing there. No words were spoken. She didn't need to. Mama stood, adjusting the baby in her arms. She walked steadily out to the world, into the corridor, past the desk, and out into the evening light. Mama followed closely. A tricycle was waiting at the corner. The driver didn't ask questions. Mama had already arranged him the day before. They climbed in and the engine coughed to life. By the time the husband returned, the room was missing more than just fresh clothes. That night, under the cover of darkness, a bus carried them back to Port Harcourt. Boma sat by the window holding the baby close, her eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. Mama sat beside her, humming softly as if this was just another trip home. When they reached the apartment, the air inside felt still, like it had been holding his breath. Boma bathed the baby gently, wrapped her in a soft blanket and fed her. Mama moved around quietly, closing curtains, turning off lights, placing a bowl and spoon by the bed. That night, Boma lay on her back with the baby on her chest. She could feel the small heartbeat against her own. Her eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, listening to every breath the child took. Joy and dread lay side by side in her heart, but refusing to move. After that night, when Boma and Mama returned to Port Harcourt with the baby, life slowed into a rhythm that looked normal to outsiders, but carried a different heartbeat inside the walls. In the mornings, Boma would sit in the living room, rocking him in her arms, humming small tunes she remembered from childhood. Mama moved about quietly as if afraid to wake something bigger than the child. Ifeanyi was still abroad most of the time. His calls were more frequent. Talk about clients, contracts, and airports. "How is my boy?" he would ask. And Boma would tilt the phone so he could see her baby's small nose. She never lingered long on video calls. "Network is misbehaving," she would say, smiling like the lie was nothing more than a napkin tossed outside after eating. "I'll be coming back soon," Ifeanyi said. 2 months later, Ifeanyi returned. First day he came home, he practically bounced as he walked in, suit jacket still on. "Come to daddy," he said when he saw the baby. Stretching out his arms, Boma placed the boy gently in his embrace, and just like that, the piece shattered. The boy's face crumbled and he let out a wail so sharp the air in the room seemed to vibrate. What is this?" Ifeanyi asked, rocking him. The cry grew louder, the boy's small fist pushing at his chest. Boma took him back, and within seconds, the crying stopped. She laughed lightly to cover the tension. "He's just not used to your scent yet." Ifeanyi brushed it off. But the next day and the day after that, the same thing happened. Each time Ifeanyi touched the boy, the crying was instant and wild, stopping only when Boma or Mama held him. "Maybe he's just too attached to you," Ifeanyi said one evening. But there was a question in his eyes he didn't voice. Weeks rolled by. The crying didn't change, but Ifeanyi still spoiled them both. He bought expensive baby clothes, imported feeding bottles, toys in bright colors that cluttered the living room. He took Boma out to eat, handed her envelopes for the house, and even talked about enrolling the boy in the best crèche when he was old enough. Then came his birthday party. That afternoon was warm. The compound full of balloons, jollof rice smoke drifting from the caterer's corner. The boy, dressed in a tiny shirt and shorts, was crawling about happily on a play mat. One of the guests, a cheerful woman with camera, crouched to take a few pictures of him. "See fine boy," she said. She took several shots, making funny noises to make him smile. Later that evening, she posted the pictures on Instagram. Boma didn't even think twice when she saw them tagged under Ifeanyi's friends page. But somewhere in another part of the country, one of Ifeanyi's distant relatives saw the post. At first, it was the child's face that caught her. Then her gaze slid to the boy's neck, to the faint curved birthmark just above his collarbone. Her heart skipped. He knew the mark. It was the same one every first son in her husband's lineage carried. The same one her husband had. The same one she had seen on her husband's grandfather's old black and white portrait. She saved the picture and sent it straight to the family WhatsApp group. The group exploded. "Where did this picture come from? Who is this child? Are you telling me our brother has a son we've not met? Please send more pictures." By morning, the photo had done a full tour, from the family group to relatives in different parts of River State. But it didn't stop there. One cousin, curious and a little too nosy, showed it to a friend in River State, who showed it to another friend who happened to be related to the Ikere woman. The message was short. This is Ngozi's son, the one that was stolen. Calls were made. Screenshots were sent. Pieces that had once been scattered now began fitting together like a puzzle. 2 weeks later, Ifeanyi came home from a trip with a stiffness in his shoulder. Boma noticed the way he dropped his suitcase carefully as though noise might set something in motion. I saw a nice picture of our boy online, he said casually, walking towards her. His voice was smooth, but there was something under it, a quiet edge. He pulled out his phone and turned the screen towards her. It was the Instagram photo. The boy was laughing, collar a little loose, the birthmark visible. Boma's breath caught before she could hide it. Tell me, Ifeanyi said, his tone still calm, but his eyes fixed on hers. Where did this boy get this mark from? The baby's laughter floated in from the next room, and that was where the air in the house seemed to pause, the sound of truth tapping at the door, waiting to be let in. For a long moment, Boma just stood there, her eyes fixed on the phone in Ifeanyi's hand. The picture seemed brighter than the rest of the room. The loose collar, the curved birthmark like it was reaching out to point at her. She had seen that mark 100 times when beating that boy, but she had never thought anything of it, as something that could betray her. It's just a mark, she said, but the words sounded thin. Ifeanyi's eyes didn't leave her. It's not just a mark, Boma. That says every first son in their family has that mark. Their grandfather had it, their great-grandfather had it, their father had it. Now I'm asking you, where did this boy get it? Her mouth was dry. She sat down slowly. Ifeanyi, if I tell you, everything will change. It already has, he said, his tone flat. The boy's laughter floated again. Mama must have been playing with him. The sound felt like it was ticking down to something Mama could no longer avoid. She took a deep breath that hurt her chest and began to speak. She told him about how their baby died, how she had to fake a pregnancy, how they moved to a slum and faked antenatal visits. He told him about the Ikere woman who called her sister and how the midwife placed the baby in her arms. But Ifeanyi's eyes told her he knew something was still missing. Are you trying to tell me our son died? Her lips trembled. Yes. I woke up in the morning to find him dead. When? He asked, his voice too quiet. She looked at her lap. Months before you came back from that long trip. The silence after that felt like it was pressing on her ears. You mean to tell me that you buried my son? And instead of telling me you decided to replace him with someone else's child? You let me carry a lie as my firstborn. Tears blurred his vision. I couldn't bear to see you break, she said. I thought you would leave me. I wouldn't have left you for losing a child, he said, his voice breaking. But I cannot stay with a woman who turned her grief into theft and deception. Early the next morning, they set out for the police station at Akwa Ibom. They were led to a room where the young couple were already seated together. The wife's eyes were red, the husband's leg bouncing against the floor. When Boma walked in with the boy on her hip, the woman inhaled sharply, like someone who had been underwater too long. The boy blinked at her, then smiled faintly. She reached out and Boma handed him over. The woman whispered his name, Chukwudi, and the boy rested his cheek on her shoulder like it was where he'd always belonged. Signatures were taken, Boma's name, Mama's name, the parents' names. Each letter felt like it took something from her fingers. By the time they stepped out, the sun was low. Ifeanyi walked ahead, his hands in his pockets, his face unreadable. Back at the apartment, he started packing a small overnight bag. You will leave first thing tomorrow, he said without looking at her. Her chest tightened. Ifeanyi, please. He turned to her, and for the first time since they left the police station, his voice rose. I could have forgiven you for the theft. I could have even forgiven the lie. But you let me believe my son was alive for months. You let me hold another woman's child. You let me dream of his future while you already knew the truth. How could you lie to me like this? How could you? She reached for him, but he stepped back. You are leaving my house, Boma. There is no us after this. The next morning, she was gone. She moved into a small, cheaper room and began working in Mama's little provision shop. The days were quieter but heavier. Through whispers, she heard the boy was doing well. The news came without pictures, which was both a relief and a punishment. One afternoon, she wrote him a letter. She folded it neatly and put it away. Maybe one day he would read it, she said. On a Sunday that smelled of rain, she stepped out of the church as the crowds broke. People rushed for shelter, but she walked straight into the downpour. It wasn't even the end of her sorrow. Sorrow doesn't end, but she felt for the first time that she'll carry it with both hands. Justice had done what it could. Mercy had done what it did. The rest was hers to live with. The end. That's how our beautiful Boma packed her bags and left the house she once enjoyed. Whether it was bad luck or bad choices, I'll leave that to you. If you are in Boma's shoes, what would you have done differently in this situation? And Ifeanyi, imagine his matter. Was he right to send her out? Or was he too harsh? Talk to me in the comment section. I'll be there replying to as many as I can. And I beg, before you go, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Trust me, it's just as explosive as this one. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.